This is my vaping testimony. Okay, I tried cigarettes throughout my life, starting when I was a kid, man. Watching my grandmother smoke made me want to try it. Of course, she'd blow smoke out through her nose, and she'd be cooking in the kitchen, right? One of her only pleasures in life was pretty much smoking. She started when she was a little kid. Anyways, long story short, I've been smoking. I smoked cigarettes for 22 years, and then I smoked cheap, crappy cigars, mostly, but I mean, occasionally good stuff, like Romeo and Julietas, the mini little guys, things like that. But also, unfortunately, Swisher Sweets in the minis, the smaller ones. And so I quit smoking in 2012, cigarettes, and then we switched over to Swisher Sweets and things like Garcia Vega, things you can get at the convenience stores, cigars. Unfortunately, we reached a point, my wife and I, where we were smoking two 5-pack minis, Swisher Sweets, in a day. So, I mean, we were basically smoking, you know, like 5 cigars, these little cigars, a day. Well, that went on pretty consistently for about 2 years, till just actually not too long ago. I mean, I've been cigar free now, you know, and cigarette free for over 2 years, right? Let's see here. I think I quit in February of 2012, so let's say February 2013, February 2014. So going on almost 3 years with cigarettes, and it's only been like 5 weeks from cigars. Okay. So what I was starting to notice, though, and this actually happened for the first time last summer when I was out in Arizona, I was having trouble getting my breath. It felt like I had somebody sitting on my chest or something, okay? You know, and so I started noticing this. And so, of course, I cut down, and you know, but it wasn't really helping much. I started taking baths in baking soda, because the alkaline nature of baking soda is supposed to be good for you, and keeps your body properly running. Maybe it can help prevent cancer. I'm not a doctor, it's just things I've been told, whatever. So I was doing that, but I was still smoking, and you know, and I didn't feel as bad as I had been. I mean, I'd cut down basically, but we were still averaging about that many cigars, and so we had looked into the disposable e-cigs that are available at convenience stores, those kind of things, a couple of years ago also, but that just didn't go anywhere. Those things were just crap. I mean, you know, they looked like cigarettes, and they had a little blue light or whatever it was at the end, and, you know, you'd take a hit and it would light them up and shit, but they were garbage. I mean, the quality was terrible. I mean, you know, you just didn't feel like you were getting anything out of it. So anyways, so I went into a head shop here, and I looked around, and not only did they carry things like pipes and all that kind of good stuff, but they also carried vaporizers. So I did some research on that, and I went ahead and bought a starter kit, which was this was the chamber for that little guy, which is now gone. And I bought that, and for a while my wife didn't want to try it. She resisted, so she kept smoking cigars, and that made it, of course, more difficult for me to even try and quit, because of the fact that now, of course, here I am using this little vaporizer guy, which really, even the battery only stays charged for maybe you got 20 minutes of vaping out of it or whatever. So, I mean, you know, I'd be smoking that, and my wife would be smoking a cigar, so of course that wasn't good. So after about 2 weeks, though, that I'd been doing this, she went ahead, and kudos to her, she went ahead and bought one of her own. At work, I was taking my thing, my little vaporizer with me too, and there's a guy there at work who really is into it, and he gave me a chamber that was like a real chamber. This guy. And I was using the old battery, and of course it was still the same problem, because, you know, you're only getting a few, you know, 20 minutes, maybe after full battery charge, and you got to go charge it again. So of course that doesn't work. I was a heavy smoker. I mean, I smoked about a pack a day of cigarettes for, like I said, 22 years, and then I smoked cigars every day for another 2. So, you know, I needed something that was going to be, you know, that I could consistently smoke when I needed it or whatever, because, yeah, I'm an addict to nicotine, and I mean, I like smoke. I hate to say that, you know. Smoke is nice. I don't know why. I can't explain it. But smoke is nice. It's sensual. Something about it. So anyway, so it's a very difficult thing to do to just give them up. And not only that, but there's the social aspect, of course, that I find most valuable. I mean, throughout my life, smokers have been always the most interesting people. Who you go talk to. You go on break and you talk to the smokers, and maybe that's why they're the more interesting people, because you actually have an opportunity to socialize with them at work. Whereas with the other people, maybe you'll see them in the break room or something, but there's no place where you just stand around and talk generally. So anyways, either way, it doesn't matter. My point is, though, is the social aspect is really big too. So, like, I had a friend of mine over here last weekend. He's been smoking for, about 26 years now, 27 years. And he smoked about 7 cigarettes in a 8-hour time span. And he wasn't even interested in trying the vaping thing, but I was able to resist. I took a drag off a cigarette from him just because, and that was about it. The rest of the time I used my vaporizer, even though I had to keep going and charging it. Anyways, now I have moved into, like I said, I've got this chamber. It is by a company called Kenger Tech, and it's called the Aero Tank 2. And I just recently had a new coil installed, and I got a new base for it because the other base had broken. And I got this battery. Finally, I have a battery that actually can last, smoking like I smoke. This is called an iLeaf iStick, 50 watts. And so I've got this it's a cool setup, man. This chamber has this little airflow thing at the bottom here, you can turn it and it opens up these holes, and it aids in the vaporizing process by heating, I guess, I don't know, running over the coils or whatever. And so this is what I'm using now, man, and I'll take a hit here. Now, I know there's some people that have these things and they make these big clouds of smoke. I'm an addict to nicotine, so I wouldn't be one of these people who just buys this thing because it looks cool and it can smoke or vapor. It's actually aerosol, technically, because it contains, particulate. So anyways, but the aerosoling doesn't sound as good as vaping does, right, or vaporizing. So, but anyways, it's technically aerosol that's created when this atomizer heats up this coil. The coil heats up and basically, turns this stuff into vapor. Propylene glycol and vegetable glycerin is what it primarily is, along with whatever flavors they use, which this one happens to be something called cantaloupe, which is pretty nice flavor, actually. But anyways, here's my testimony. I know there's a lot of controversy about these things. There's always controversy about anything that is pleasurable in the society, basically, from sex to dope to cigarettes to fucking whatever. You name it. There's always somebody bitching about something in this culture. Always somebody got some complaint. So there's a lot of people who don't like these things and are trying to put the same kind of restrictions on them as tobacco, and claiming that, they might be unsafe. And I'm going to tell you this right off the bat. My lungs feel better than they have felt in years. And this is only after like 5 weeks, man. I mean, my lungs feel better. There's no question. I mean, okay, so maybe this is going to kill me too, but I don't think I'm going to be smoking this, hopefully, for the next 22 freaking years. I mean, I hope. If so, well, we'll find out what the effects are. But of course, this cannot be, it's impossible for this to be worse for me than cigarettes or cigars. I mean, there's just no way. And my testimony again is my lungs. There's no wheezing. Wheezing's gone. I'm not waking up every morning coughing anymore. Oh my God, I'm not coughing anymore when I wake up in the morning. Okay, I don't wheeze. I'm not wheezing. I mean, sometimes teeny little bit. I can hear like, but I mean, it's dramatically different. This has helped me feel better. I don't smell like tobacco all the time. My clothes doesn't stink. I don't have filthy ashtrays sitting around the house anymore. I mean, I'm not breathing, breathing out smoke, exhaling smoke around my son anymore. I have a 10-year-old kid. I can smoke this indoors and I don't bother anybody, and it just dissipates. All the research I've done, and I've done a bunch of research on this, shows me that this is a much safer alternative. Some of these people coming out saying, "Oh, I gotta regulate it." You know who it is? Of course, it's big pharmaceutical, because they didn't come up with this. Big pharmaceutical companies like Johnson & Johnson, I forget what the other guy was, they were trying to petition the FDA basically to restrict this stuff, to put the same kind of regulations again, you know, to ban them outright. And then the FDA tried to say that these were medical devices, and they got overthrown in court. And again, the people who were, ironically enough, that were involved in trying to do all this type of legislation against these gadgets were people like American Lung Association, the American Heart Association, some cancer groups. Well, why? Well, it's obvious because, guess what? They lose revenue. If this stuff actually works, okay, for one thing, the taxes aren't going the same places like tobacco is. Tobacco, man, when you go and buy a pack of cigarettes, you know, like 95% of the cost is taxes. You're supporting this horrible government of ours, this ridiculous, overinflated stupidity that we've created. Well, I say we very loosely, but just we don't have much say in this government. That's another story. But we're feeding their coffers when you go buy tobacco. Not to mention the coffers of these horrible companies, you know. I mean, I've always tried to find, when I was smoking, I smoked American Spirits, I used to roll my own drum, you know, I was, you know, I was trying to roll my own, make, you know, that kind of thing, avoid the mainstream big, you know, tobacco companies. I mean, I've even grown my own tobacco. If you ever watch any of my videos, you know I've got tobacco plants growing right now. I've got cured tobacco in a can, sitting right over there. But I'm not smoking it, you know, and of course my own tobacco would be safer than anything you buy in the store, on top of, you know, anything else. But I'm not smoking it. You know, and that had been one of my other, that was like my final option. I was like, oh, I'm going to grow tobacco plants. Nobody has tobacco plants. I grow a lot of strange plants, interesting plants. Nobody has tobacco plants. And I was thinking, well, I'll grow my own, without any, you know, pesticides or without the radiated, you know, fertilizer or any of that kind of thing, you know, that's found in, you know, store-bought tobacco, you know, like from Marlboro, let's say, or, you know, Camel or whatever. You know, no artificial chemicals, no artificial, but you know what? In the end, it's still tobacco, and it's still smoke. And it's still going into my lungs. And so, this is probably a long-winded video, I guess, but, you know, I mean, overall, in the end, I would have to say that this, at least for me, has been a real boon to my health. And I am really grateful that this even exists. And I realize that this thing was, the idea of this first occurred in like 1963, from what I understand. It was an American inventor who got this idea kind of patented, like in 65. And then in 2004-ish, a Chinese gentleman, you know, went ahead and came up with, you know, his own version of this thing, and it's just taken off, you know. But the thing is, I have stayed away after trying those things. I think they were the blues. Trying those disposable cigarettes. Never again. That was a waste of time and money. This stuff, though, man, this type of vaporizing, this works. And I am a very happy man because of the fact that now I think I've really done myself a big favor by putting no more smoke into my lungs. I mean, okay, so this stuff may be harmful some way or another, and I'm actually trying to explore options as far as propylene glycol is concerned. You know, maybe there's a e-juice, which is funny, e-juice out there that doesn't have to contain those particular ingredients like propylene glycol, because that one seems about the scariest, but I also know that it's used in other, you know, things, you know, but I mean, I don't know about inhaling it. Again, nobody knows because this hasn't been around long enough for people to really know if there's any real serious side effects. But what I have seen, again, in the short term, at least for me, and by no means am I a doctor again, but this is my own life after having smoked for a total of about 24 years, this has helped me quit smoking real smoke. And I feel as though, again, I can take a deep breath again. And for that, I am very thankful to these, and I hope that there are no more restrictions placed on them than you know what there already is. At least here in Texas, there's hardly any restrictions at all on these right now. And there's a lot of businesses that have cropped up because of this. There's a lot of shops in town that sell them. I go to one in particular that I really like, and you know, it's like a bar. They got all these flavors, you know. There's tables you can sit, and a couch, you know, all this stuff, and you can sit there and vaporize till your eyes pop out, you know. And by the way, for my purposes, this is the perfect setup. This battery goes all the way to 50 watts. I'm using it only at, I've got it set at 10.7 watts, which is 4.1 volts. And it actually shows you all this on here. It tells you how many volts, you know, you know what you're running. You can, you know, set it wherever you want and lock it in place so it will not change if you have it in your pocket or something. It hits these little guys, because these are what controls the amount of watts that you're running. This is your fire button, so to speak. And this thing charges with any old iPhone charger right there on the side, man. You can even keep it going and hit it while it's charging. And again, like I said, this is a Kenger, I guess that's how you pronounce it, Kenger Aero Tank 2. And I'm totally happy with it. I mean, I love it. I recommend, if you're a smoker, we're intelligent enough and we're knowledgeable enough at this point in history that we know that inhaling smoke in our lungs is damaging to us. You know, and I mean, again, I'm not sitting here saying, oh, I'm scared, or whatever. But I'm saying, I've got a 10-year-old son. I don't need to have COPD. I don't need to have cancer or anything like that in my lungs from being a dumbass and smoking for 24 years. So if this is going to help me quit, if this is going to help me not smoke, I might be stuck with this for another year. I don't know. I've actually kind of enjoyed it. You know, you get a really serious nicotine high off this thing. I'm running 24 right now in this. You know, it comes in these different percentages of nicotine, and this is 24 because I figured at the one store I went to the first time, that was the highest they sold, but there are higher. You know, you get like 31, I think it is. One of the other shops had that. Well, you can go all the way down to 0, so you can just have 0, no nicotine. You know, so you can actually. And my plan is to steadily decrease my usage. You know, and I may keep this as a habit for a while, just for fun. Especially if I can figure out a way to get one, like I said, without the propylene glycol, then I might do it for pleasure. And maybe there'll be a cannabis one, you know, cannabis that you can smoke. That'd be kind of cool, huh? But anyways, I mean, if you're thinking about quitting smoking, I mean, this would be one of my suggestions right off the bat. I mean, you're still getting your nicotine. You know, so you have your glass of coffee in the morning when you're going to work, man, you know, and you break out your coffee. And guess what? Goes really well with it. And it tastes good, and you can pick out various flavors and all sorts of stuff. You know, they try to sell this crap out, that's for kids. Well, then I guess I'm like a big kid, man. Because I like picking out the little flavors and trying them out and seeing what's out there, and I don't want to taste tobacco anymore, which is why I like the flavors. I'm trying to move away from tobacco. You know, I don't want it to taste like tobacco because that's going to make me want tobacco. When I smell cigarettes sometimes, I want one. So I've still got to break that. Just say, no, don't touch it anymore, you know. But I mean, from a person who would normally consume, you know, 100 cigarettes in 5 days or whatever, this is a big change, man. Oh my goodness. So anyways, that's my testimony. My testimony is these are positive things. If they help anybody, you know, prevent getting COPD, if they help anybody break the habit of smoking and wasting all that money and you know, and smoking around your kids or whatever, then this is a good thing. And for anyone like to come out and try to ban them or put these big hard restrictions on them, it's just ridiculous. Leave it alone. Alright, so anyways, I guess I went on too long probably, but I think this is really important stuff. I mean, it's important that people are aware that these are a definite viable option to smoking a analog cigarette, you know. So anyway, so that's my testimony. Everybody have a great day, and see you in the next round.